up next, final workshop of the day, big one coming up. So we just finished up with data swizzling. Up next, we've got Man in the Malware, Stealing Threat Actor Comms by Ben Foland. That's a pretty cool name. Ben, I know you're backstage. Let's slide you in over here.
Hello,
Ben,
hello. How are we doing?
welcome. Good. How are you?
Awesome. I'm doing very, very well. I'm excited to give this workshop. Yeah, lots of exciting content. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Definitely. And I feel like this is probably I don't know if this is a workshop. This is definitely a course. I'm just going to say that right now. This one that you have built, this is huge. Just wait till you see what he's got in store for you, everyone.
Yeah, there's a lot of content. We're not going to be able to go through it all in this one session, but we're going to go over some of the core points, the exciting bits. So
Definitely. Cool. Well, Ben, I think you got to share your screen as well too. So
awesome.
waiting on that. Yeah.
Let's do that right now.
Man in the Malware. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a really good name, and I'm so excited to see the content.
Let's try share that.
Yes, I heard the boop.
Is
I'm
it
gonna add it to scene. Cool.
perfect? Let's hide that. Awesome.
All yours, Ben.
So yeah, Man in the Malware, Stealing Threat Actor Comms. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm gonna go over a quick agenda. I'm going to start off with an obligatory "Who am I?" an introduction to myself. We're then going to talk about some workshop goals. So, like at the end of the workshop, where do I hope attendees, what will they have learned? What will they be able to do? And I'm also going to touch on some prerequisite knowledge. And then we're going to go through some slides talking about OPSEC, operational security, talking about threat intelligence, and talking about command and control. And then we're going to get to the live demo, the exciting part where we've got real malware, and we're going to be looking at how it communicates, and we're going to be looking at ways we can intercept those communications and what we can gain out of intercepting them. What intelligence can we get? So pretty exciting. But yeah, first of all, who am I? I'm Ben. If you couldn't tell by my accent, I'm from the UK. I'm not sure if I'm the only UK presenter here for Continuum Con, but it's good to have some representation. I go by the online handle Polygon Ben on Twitter. I've got a YouTube channel and a blog. I post content relating to CTF walkthroughs, threat hunting. I've spoken at a couple of conferences. I am extremely fortunate to work at Huntress, a really awesome team. I've recently started there, but I've previously worked at a large consultancy. But enough about me. Let's get to the exciting part. First of all, some workshop goals. So at the end of this workshop, I hope all attendees will be able to pick up a suspect file or a sample of malware and be able to understand what it does, right? Be able to extract some core indicators of compromise and be able to understand its capability and be able to do some sort of rapid triage. Attendees will also learn about persistence, right? How malware persists on a host such that when the workstation gets shut down or it gets turned off, in a week's time or however long, the malware will still be running. So attendees will be able to hunt down persistence and exterminate it. They'll be able to deal with malware which is built up of multiple stages, right? We've got encoding, encryption, compression going on. You're going to deal with Cobalt Strike beacons, learning how to sort of deobfuscate some of the default beacon loaders and droppers, and how we can sort of extract the configuration from those beacons and sort of gain some pertinent IOCs. And then most importantly, intercepting Telegram C2, right? Malware which isn't using traditional means for command and control and is instead sort of proxying the command and control through Telegram. We're going to learn how that works. We're going to learn how malware is embedded with Telegram bot tokens, and how this is a big OPSEC failure, and how we can exploit this and take those Telegram bot tokens and use it to intercept communications and gain valuable intelligence. So that's going to be the goals. First of all, prerequisite knowledge. If you're coming into this course with some foundation in scripting, maybe you've played around with Python before, you're familiar with PowerShell, or you've played around with JavaScript, that will put you in a good position, right? You don't have to be fluent, but if you can read and sort of understand the functionality of any script, whether it's Python, PowerShell, whatever, you'll be good. The same with cryptography and networking, right? If you understand what encoding is, encryption, the difference between the two, maybe common encryption sort of ciphers, common encoding mechanisms. If you're familiar with that, you'll be in a good position to excel in this course. And the same with networking. The majority of malware will communicate one way or another, right? It needs to send data somewhere, or it needs to receive commands. So it will need to communicate using some network protocol, whether that's HTTP, HTTPS, DNS, right? So being familiar with these protocols will set you up to do well on this workshop. But yeah, without further ado, let's actually get on with it and start getting into the content. So OPSEC, operational security, right? We hear this word thrown around quite a lot in the security community. Maybe we're talking about an individual who's got poor operational security. They're oversharing on social media, or maybe it's an individual who's at the pub and they're discussing a sensitive client, and the discussion could potentially be overheard by somebody, right? This could constitute poor OPSEC. Or maybe it's an individual who is using the same password across all their accounts. That would constitute poor OPSEC. Maybe it's an organization which doesn't give the sort of employees security awareness training. That could constitute for the organization poor operational security. Poor OPSEC would definitely be if an organization wasn't patching, or they weren't updating their servers and patching their servers, and they were vulnerable, this would definitely constitute poor OPSEC. And I work in a SOC day in, day out. I stop threat actors which are exploiting an individual or an organization's operational security, poor operational security. Maybe it's an employee at a company which is clicking a link and they're entering credentials. Well, a threat actor has exploited operational security failure of the user as they're clicking on this malicious link. Maybe they haven't had the training for it. But either way, there's an OPSEC failure, and it has led to the threat actor gaining credentials and compromising account. And I'm there to stop there. That's what I do in my job as a SOC analyst. I stop threat actors who have exploited an individual or an organization's OPSEC. Okay. However, and this is something we often forget, every individual has some level of operational security. So threat actors, cyber criminals, they will also have a level of operational security. Some cyber criminals may have really good OPSEC. They may hide all their activity behind a proxy, and they may be really careful with how they operate. And they remain anonymous. They don't go out shouting about what they've done on cybercrime forums, and they do their operations secretively. Maybe this is a nation state or a sophisticated group which has really good OPSEC. But you also have low-level threat actors which don't have good OPSEC. And we, in the blue team, as a researcher, can exploit threat actors which have poor OPSEC. And we'll get onto that in a minute. But what does poor OPSEC look like for a threat actor? Well, just like any other IT team or any other organization, if you have default weak credentials, vulnerable infrastructure, this will all constitute poor OPSEC, just like any other organization or IT team. However, there is sort of threat actor specific activity which can constitute poor OPSEC, like open directories. A lot of times when you've got a malware campaign, or there's some sort of execution chain of malware, additional payloads will be pulled down from, let's say, a web server. And sometimes it'll just be a single executable or a script, a malicious script, which will be pulled down via a HTTP request. The threat actor, when they're hosting this file, this malicious payload on the web server, they may accidentally leave it open. So they'll create an open directory such that the whole entire directory's files are exposed and accessible, rather than just the individual payload or executable they were hoping to share. And this can give us context into this sort of cybercrime operation, because instead of just having this one malicious file, we can maybe see other folders, other text files. We may be able to gather some forensic artifacts, or we may be able to see victim data which should have been hidden and the threat actor accidentally exposed. It's the threat actor basically leaving the front doors open for their machine, and anyone can come and access the files. Sometimes This is their like home directory in Linux, and there may be a bash history file. So you can see the commands which have been ran from the threat actor's machine. This is an OPSEC failure that a threat actor may do. Embedding malware with important API keys and credentials. This is a really important one, and this is one we're going to be exploiting later. A lot of times, malware will need to authenticate to some location. Let's say malware has capability of exfiltrating files. It's an info stealer. If you run it on your machine, it's going to look for credentials. It's going to potentially exfiltrate PDFs or exfiltrate credentials which are in your browser and send it to a threat actor location. Maybe it will send it to some cloud storage. But in order to authenticate to the cloud storage, you need some credential, you need some API key, in whatever form that may be. You often see malware exfiltrating data via SMTP, via email, and there needs to be some hard-coded credentials. You will deal with this in this workshop. You will also deal with other credentials being hard-coded. We're going to be looking at Telegram API keys. That's just one OPSEC failure. And we can go down this list, reusing online handles across campaigns in real life. We see this a lot of times in law enforcement when a threat actor gets arrested because they use the same username or online handle on the cybercrime forums where they're bragging about their attacks. And they also use that on their, let's say, Reddit or an old forum account on the clear web used legitimately, which could be linked back to an individual. And that's how a cybercriminal may get caught. Reusing domains and IPs across multiple campaigns, right? If you're a threat actor and you're doing multiple cyber attacks, you've got multiple campaigns going on over a long period of time. If you're using the same infrastructure, the same IPs, these will soon get caught. These can be essentially burnt after the first time you've used them, and they may be on block lists. Defenders, people like me, may be on the lookout for these indicators, these IP addresses. However, if you've got a sophisticated group in APT and nation state, yeah, they may recycle domains and infrastructure for every single intrusion they do. However, the vast majority of threat actors, the low-level threat actors, the ones which are doing mass mal spam campaigns, they're not going to be reusing domains and IPs as and we can use this to track across multiple intrusions. Carry on. C2, command and control, the way malware communicates not being encrypted. If it's not encrypted, we can read what is being sent, what data is being exfiltrated, the commands which are being sent, and this can give us more insight into the activity which is going on. Threat actors bragging about attacks in online forums. I don't really need to go into this one, why it's an OPSEC failure. It basically allows instant attribution, even if it's not to an individual like a person and an address. It allows you to attribute an attack to an individual or an entity. And finally, threat actors operating in their time zone. Like, how could this constitute poor threat actor OPSEC? A lot of times when you're on an IR case, or let's say a security company, Mandiant, or a big security company, they do an attribution on a particular threat actor they've been tracking. And they may be tracking them over a long period of time, over multiple intrusions. And when they're doing their incident response engagements, they may map the threat actor activity. So let's say the threat actor has been in the network for 30 days. When they're doing their forensics and they're collecting the data, they may say, look, we've only seen the threat actor operating between 7 p.m. British Standard Time and 4 a.m. British Standard Time. For each day the threat actor has been active and moving around the network and exfiltrating data, we've seen them been operating in between these two times. And this may be used with other factors in an attribution. And they may say, look, we can see the 7 p.m. British Standard Time to 4 a.m. British Standard Time maps to China's 9 to 5 or China's sort of daylight hours. And that may be used among other factors in an attribution. Sorry, I just hit the mic. In an attribution of a threat actor to a particular geographic location, right? This is obviously not completely accurate, but it is sometimes used in attributions. And by the way, I picked two random numbers there, two random times, 7 p.m. to 4 p.m. I've got no idea what time zone that maps to. I said China, right? I don't know what time zone that maps to. That's just for example. But yeah, moving on. So yeah, exploiting threat actor OPSEC failures, right? We've got all these things here we can use for intelligence. They exploit our OPSEC failures, and day in, day out, we respond to threat actors which are abusing OPSEC failures. We can do it ourselves. We can abuse their OPSEC failures and gain intelligence to help us win. But we're doing it to gain intelligence. We're not doing it. I know it's fun and it's interesting to gain intelligence, right? We're doing it to help our defense strategy. So I want to talk about threat intelligence here, because the result of intercepting these communications, we can use this data we've captured for our threat hunting team, for our detection engineering team. We're not doing it just because it's fun. So what is threat intelligence, right? UK's National Cybersecurity Centre define threat intelligence, and it's a big definition. So we're going to break this down. Evidence-based knowledge, including context, mechanisms, indicators, implications, and actionable advice about an existing or emerging menace or hazard to assets that can be used to inform decisions regarding the subject's response to that menace or hazard. Big definition. Let's break this down. The first part, evidence-based knowledge, including context, mechanisms, indicators, right? This is your actual intelligence. This is your data. This could be domain names, IP addresses, hashes. This just could be TTPs on a particular threat actor or on a threat. And it's evidence-based, right? This is backed up with evidence. This isn't just, we're not just guessing that this is what's happening, right? We've had an intrusion or there's been observed activity and we've documented the indicators, the activity, and we've got this hard sort of evidence backed up data on threat actor behavior. And the second part of the definition, about an existing or emerging menace or hazard. This is your actual threat group. This is your APT. This is your cybercrime, ransomware group, whoever. And then finally, this is the reason we do threat intelligence. That can be used to inform decisions regarding the subject's response to the menace, right? Threat-informed defense. We do threat intelligence such that we can tailor our defense strategy with knowledge of how threat actors operate. So that's the reason we do threat intelligence. That's the reason we're gathering all this data. Let's move on. Command and control. I've mentioned this before. MITRE defined command and control, or C2, as the adversary is trying to communicate with compromised systems to control them. C2 is just how malware communicates. Okay, all malware, for the most part, will communicate, right? Malware will need to send data to some location, a threat actor controlled location. Sometimes malware will receive commands, and there needs to be a network connection set up between a victim machine and a threat actor controlled machine. So this could be over normal network protocols like HTTP or HTTPS. The malware C2 might blend in as regular web traffic to over HTTP or HTTPS or even DNS. You see C2 over a wide variety of different network protocols. Traditionally, when a threat actor wanted to set up C2, they would need a C2 server on the internet. And the C2 server on the internet is just going to be listening for incoming connections from the malware being executed on victim machines. And once it receives those incoming connections, you've got that network connection. You can start receiving data or sending commands to your victim. So how would you do that? If I was a threat actor, how would I do that? I would need a domain or an IP address, and I would need some server or somewhere to host it on the internet. And typically we see threat actors use some sort of cloud hosting, a VPS, and they would get a box, a server on the internet, make it internet facing, open up a port, and install their software, install their C2 server. And when they configure their malware, they'll hard code in the malware the domain name such that it will call back to the server. That's how malware traditionally communicated. Nowadays, we're seeing a shift of malware evolving to use trusted sort of services to communicate. So instead of the threat actor going out the way and buying a domain and buying a server and setting up all of this infrastructure and hosting a C2 and configuring DNS, instead of going through the effort of doing that, they'll say, look, let's just get a Telegram account and I'll host the C2 and proxy it through a trusted service like Telegram or Discord. So threat actors are moving towards using trusted services as a way of facilitating command and control. And what are the benefits of doing that? One, they don't have to buy their infrastructure, so it's for free. Two, it's using a trusted domain, so they're not using a newly registered .xyz domain, which the SOC is going to alert on because it's a suspicious newly registered domain. No, not at all. They're using a trusted telegram.org domain, and that's unlikely to be blocked because it's a well-known domain. But it's not just Telegram. There are multiple different platforms which can be used by threat actors. Everything from VirusTotal to Instagram to Dropbox to Counter-Strike 1.6, right? Strava. You could communicate over using these platforms' APIs and send data to there, and then the threat actor would read the data from Telegram or from Counter-Strike rather than reading it directly from something they own. Not all of these are used by threat actors in the wild, right? A lot of these are created just for fun by red teams or whoever as a proof of concept. However, we do see some of these platforms used very frequently. Telegram, Discord are a few examples. So we'll have a look at Telegram, right? So in Telegram, you've got automated accounts. These are called bots, okay? And using if you've got a Telegram bot, you can interact with APIs. You need a credential to authenticate to the API and say, look, I am this bot. It's just a password. Once you've got that, you can send data. You can send messages to a Telegram chat, a group, or a channel. You can read messages. You can forward messages. You can send documents. You can basically act as any other Telegram user and just interact through the APIs. And it's super, super easy to create a Telegram bot. You just need an account, and you would embed this into the malware. So you would hide the bot token, the credential within the malware. And when the malware is executed, like any other malware would do, it would go through the host and try find these credentials. Like if it was an info stealer, it would try find these sensitive files. It would find the credentials, and it would get ready to send them. But instead of sending it to, let's say, a threat actor-owned server, it would send them to a Telegram domain, and it would use an API request with the authentication material, with that bot token, hard-coded within the malware to authenticate to a Telegram chat to send it to a particular channel. And the threat actor would be in that channel, and they'd be reading the messages which are being received, which is just the info stealer. So this is how you would create a Telegram token. You would just message botfather, and if you have Telegram, and to do this next lab, you would need Telegram to complete it fully, but we'll get onto that shortly. You message botfather, you say, look, I want to create a new bot. What is the user? And I'll say, look, I want to call it Polygon Ben Example. And yes, by the way, I see somebody's asked if they have a question, feel free to put questions. I will answer them. And then you'll put the user, and then you'll choose a username. So you've got basically a name and then a username, Polygon Example _ bot. And then it gives you the token down here. This is the credential you can use to authenticate as the bot. This is the password. So you'd want to keep this secure. And you can see down there, it does say, keep your token secure and store it safely. It can be used by anyone to control your bot. So keep that point in mind when we get onto this next section. So live demo. This is going to get quite exciting. What I've got here is the malware VM. This is the VM, which is part of the workshop. So this is the workshop here. I'll give a brief rundown now. There are 3 labs. I'm going to be basically walking through the content in lab 3. So I'm not going to be going through any of the others. There is, if you are completing the workshop, I would encourage you to go through the content in order and then get to lab 3 as we go through the fundamentals and get like a baseline knowledge of malware analysis before going diving deep into the Telegram communications and intercepting those. So I'm going to go to the VM here, and in lab 3, in the desktop, we've got different folders for the different labs. We've got lab 3 here, and we've got a malware sample here. I've all the malware samples on the VM are ending in the extension .malz, and this is to basically defang the files, right? If this was named stage1.js and you accidentally double clicked on that, that would execute it. And we're dealing with real malware in this session. This particular strain, I've replaced it. This particular sample, sorry, of malware, I've replaced the bot token, so it's not going to send it to a threat actor location. However, other samples and challenges in this workshop do have real malware, which will exfiltrate data to a threat actor owned location. So you have to be really careful. And in this lab, this particular sample here, as I mentioned, is configured to go to my location, my Telegram channel. If you uploaded this to VirusTotal, an online sandbox, it would get scanned and ran, and data from the sandbox would get sent to my Telegram channel. So if you're doing this lab, please do not upload this to any online sandbox or VirusTotal, because we will end up getting other people's data, sandbox data, in the Telegram chat. So that's something we need to be careful with. So let's open this up, right? We've got this sample here. We can open it up in Notepad++ here, and we can see this is JavaScript. And we can see we're starting off here with this variable here, parts, being defined. And then we see the push function is being used basically to add entries to this array. And we can see it looks like base64 fragments or base64 text is being added one after another, incrementally being added to this array parts. And we can go down and we can scroll down to the bottom of this, and we can see eventually at the bottom here, this base64 CMD, this base64 command variable is defined, and it's just defined as this parts array all joined together. So right, I'm not fluent in JavaScript, but I can understand what this is doing is it's taking each sort of base64 fragment and then joining it all together in one big blob. And this base64 command variable is being passed here to this sort of command variable, which is just a new PowerShell process which is being spawned. So what we've got here is a base64 encoded PowerShell blob of text being executed. We want to extract this. So how can we do this, right? I could go through line by line, copy and pasting this and manually reassembling that. But obviously I'm not going to waste my time and do that. I could also, let's say, defang this script and say, look, this is malware, but this is the malicious part. So I could just get rid of the malicious part where it's actually spawning it and running this sort of second stage of malware. I could just get rid of that and print it out. That's one method, and that's totally safe. I'm not going to do that method. I'm going to show you how we can use Cyberchef, which is a tool which will be really useful to deal with this. So in Cyberchef, I've copied across the JavaScript file, the obfuscated JavaScript file, which is made up of base64 encoded chunks of data. And I want to understand what's going on. I want to decode this and extract this next stage. So how can I start going in the direction of doing that? Well, I want to get these base64 encoded chunks because I know that's going to be decoded and executed. So I can use regex, and I'm just going to do a simple regex. This is not like the official base64 regex, but I'm just going to say, look, I want chunks of text which are any of the characters uppercase and lowercase, A to Z and 0 to 9, and I want it to say, let's 40 characters or more, and I just want to see, can we find these? And we've done that regex, and at the moment we've highlighted, look, these are the base64 fragments, strings which are going to get reassembled, but they've just been highlighted here, right? I want them to be listed. So let's say, look, let's list matches here, and we'll bake again, and now I've got the base64 fragment extracted one after another in the output of this Cyberchef here. So they're one after another on their own line. I want them all to be on one line so I can base64 decode it and get this secondary stage. So what I'm going to do is find and replace. I'm going to get the find and replace operation in, and I want to say, look, I want to look for new line characters. So Shoes asked there, do like a string pull on the file and decode each? Yeah, you could basically try grep for the base64 chunks, or do strings to get those base64 chunks out, those fragments out, and try do it in the command line. That's totally possible. So yeah, give that a go. But what I'm going to do here is find and replace. I'm looking for a special character, a new line character. And what do I want to replace this with? I want to replace it with nothing, because I want to get it all in one line. So I'm just going to get rid of all new line characters, and we'll bake this. And we can see now all on one line, we've got this base64 encoded blob of data. So we can now base64 decode this and get this second stage. So we go from base64, we decode this, and we can see we've got some PowerShell here, as we expected, because this was passed into a PowerShell process. So we can create a new let's do that. Oopsie. We can create a new file here, and we'll go across, make sure we've got this. And it doesn't look like I've copied all of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to view word wrap, and I want to check I've copied all of this. I'm not sure if I have. Go down to the bottom. It doesn't look like I have copied all of that. Let's go back, and I've lost my mouse. There it is. Let's go back here and let's just save this to stage2.ps1.mouse. So we started off with a JavaScript file, and then we saw what this JavaScript file was actually doing. It was just spawning a PowerShell process. So we've got this second stage. We've unraveled an additional layer of malware, and now we're going to inspect this. So we've got this second stage here, and I'm going to open this up again in Notepad++. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go language, and I'm going to get the syntax highlighting on for PowerShell, and I'm going to zoom in here. And we've got variables key, IV, cipher defined. So this is sort of looking like maybe we've got some encrypted data, which has got an initialization vector and maybe a key. We can scroll down and we can see, yeah, this is what's going on. We've got AES encryption here. And what is actually happening with this encryption? So we've got some encrypted data, and it's decrypted and it's written to this directory here, x.exe. So we've got this big encrypted, this cipher variable, which is storing AES encrypted data. And once it's decrypted, it's writing it to this x.exe. So we can copy this and we can decode it ourselves. So let's just go back over here, and I'm going to try copy this cipher variable, and let's clear the output and clear the input. We'll go like this, and we'll copy the cipher variable. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to AES decrypt this. We can see there is some encryption going on. I want to stop this, and I want to decrypt it. So first of all, we can see, look, this is a base64 encoded string, and then if we decode it, we will get the encrypted data. So let's just bake this, and we've got garbled data here. This is encrypted. It doesn't make sense. But how do we deal with this? We use AES decryption. So the malware developer has used encryption to try hide the actual malicious payload hidden in the malware. So we've got the hard-coded key and the initialization vector, so we can just copy this across, right? This is the thing. When we've got encryption or compression in a malware, it has to be reversed. It has to be decrypted or decompressed when it's executed. So it's always possible, one way or the other, to reverse it. So we can copy this initialization vector, we can copy the hard-coded key, and we're going to update the format here to base64. And the input isn't hex. It was base64 encoded, but we decoded that, so it's going to be raw. And we're going to say, look, let's bake this. And now we see the strings MZ, and this program cannot be ran in DOS mode. When we see these strings, we've got a portable executable, an EXE or a DLL file, which is going to be ran. So we'll save this as stage 3.mouse again, using that malz file extension. It looked like I already saved one to disks, so We'll use this one here. I'm going to first of all open this up in Detector Easy, and this will be able to tell us some information about the binary, right? We'll get some metadata on the binary and see what's going on. We'll be able to get its entropy, maybe able to tell us if it's compressed or packed. But we can open it up in Detector Easy, and we can see, look, this is a .NET binary. So if you've done any malware analysis before, or if in the course you'll learn this, if you've got .NET binaries, we can decompile to plain text source code really easily. If you've got a regular binary, if it's compiled in C or it's a normal binary, and you try to decompile it, the best you're going to get is pseudocode C or assembly in Ghidra, right? Fortunately, with .NET binaries, we can get the plain text source code. And I'm not a reverse engineer, so I love when I see .NET binaries. I can just open them up in dnspy or another tool, a .NET compiler, and we can get the plain text C# source code. So we're going to do exactly that, right? We're going to open it up in dnspy, and we can go through it and start understanding this binary's capability. We can look at the source code. We can start looking at the functions, and we can see, look, clipboard, screenshot sender. We can see functions indicative of an info stealer or a keylogger. We can go down. We can see keylog, password log, clip send log. We can go through and say, look, let's just have a look at Mozilla speed and Thunderbird. And it looks like we've got source code to go through and look for maybe Thunderbird credentials. And I don't have time to go through the full source code of this info stealer, but it is an info stealer, and it has immense capabilities to steal credentials from almost every application you can think of, like every variant of every Chromium browser. This can steal credentials for. This is called Nova Info Stealer. It's a fork of Snake Info Stealer, so it's pretty cool. However, I'm interested in how this info stealer sends the data and where it sends it to. That's what I'm really interested in. So this info stealer has a configuration, right? It's sold like as a malware as a service, and to ease the production and the delivery, there is a configuration for the malware where you would just need to change, let's say, your FTP credentials or your SMTP credentials or your Telegram API key. And we can find this configuration here. And what does this configuration tell us, right? We can go down and see, look, there are no entries for like FTP or host or any of these. So this isn't really being used. Let me just go back. I got lost there. Here, we can see there is an expiry date. So this has like a kill switch date. If this is in a few years, or if this is past 2030, this malware wouldn't run. But what we can see here is sort of hard-coded Telegram bot tokens. And this is where it gets exciting. This is the credential the malware uses to send data. And where is it sending data to? Well, it's sending it to a Telegram chat. But what Telegram chat? This one here. So this is the two core pieces of information that we really need here. And I'm going to zoom in on this, right? We've got the Telegram access variable. This is the authentication credential, right? This is the password the bot uses to send messages. And it sends messages to this chat. So we can now use two scripts and Telegram to steal these credentials. I know when this malware gets executed, it's going to be sent to this Telegram chat using this Telegram credential. However, if this malware is sent to me and I'm analyzing it, there's a good chance there are going to be other victims or there are going to be other people who's ran it. Maybe the malware developer has tested it, whatever. I want to see what communications have been sent to this Telegram channel. And this is where the intercepting communication comes into. So we're going to open a command prompt now, and we're going to take advantage of two open source scripts to intercept the communications. So let's just go to the desktop, and we're going to go to lab 3, and I'm just going to list the directories here. We've got prepare pot and forward messages. right? When we're intercepting these communications and we're getting these Telegram C2 comms, right? We're not using any 0 days. We're not doing any fancy exploitation. We're basically just forwarding the messages from one chat, threat actors chat, this chat down here, this chat ID here, and we're sending it to our chat. We're going through each message this bot has ever sent or received from a chat, and we're forwarding it to ours, right? Super, super simple. There is an API call called forward message, and it allows you to forward a message with a message ID from one chat to another chat. And we're just basically brute forcing, iterating through all possible message IDs and forwarding it from the threat actor's chat to our chat. So we need to first of all get the ID of our chat. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the prepare bot for this part. We're going to go Python prepare bot here, and we're going to pass in the credential, the authentication credential, and this will basically allow us to use the Telegram API. It will allow us to authenticate to the Telegram API. We could do this part ourselves using curl. And I saw there's a question there, you running locally or you deploy, I guess it's the malware to a host. This is on the VM we've set up for the workshop. So if you've got a ticket for Continuum Con or you've logged on, you can deploy the VM in the browser, super quick and easy. You don't need to install anything. You can get started super straight away. But first of all, we'll run this prepare bot script. We've passed the bot token, and we'll just run this. And it will then tell us the username. It'll say, look, Continuum Harvester bot. This is the username of the bot. Now I can add the bot to a group that I create, and I can get the chat ID of our group. And with the chat ID of our group, I can then forward messages from its group to our group. Okay, so let's go through this. I'm going to first of all create a new group. So I'm going to say new group here, and I'm going to say live demo 123. I'm creating a group. I don't want to add any members yet. In a minute, I will add the bot, but we're going to hold off on that yet. And this is because I want to make myself anonymous. So I'm going to go manage group, administrators, click on my user account, and I'm going to say remain anonymous. Yes, I want to be anonymous. And this is because if I was adding a threat actor's bot, I wouldn't want the threat actor knowing it was my Telegram account which added them. Fortunately, this is my bot. I've created this, so it doesn't matter. It's fine. But if I was doing this in the wild, and you can do this in the wild and intercept real threat actor communications, that's something you would need to consider. But look, I've created the group. I can now add the bot. So I'm going to say, look, I want to add Continuum Harvester, and you can do this yourself, by the way. You can go and do this yourself in the lab. Continuum Harvester bot. I'm going to add that, and then after we add it, this Python script is basically just polling the API repeatedly, looking for updates. And once it receives an update, and we've just added it to the group, we've got the chat ID. So this group I've just created here, this is the ID of the group. Fun fact: if you're just in a private DM, it's like a positive integer, but if it's a group, it's a negative chat ID. But we've got the chat ID here. This is the group we've just created here. So what can I do now? I can forward messages from the threat actors chat here to my one. Simple as that, right? We can use the next script, Python forward messages. I will pass once again the authentication credential, the bot token, as I will need to authenticate to use the APIs. And then I will say, look, what chat do I want to send from? I want to send from this chat here. So copy, and so let's just zoom out a little bit. So I want to send from the threat actors chat to my chat ID there. And then it's going to go and start brute forcing the message IDs. And I want you to look at the notifications here, right? We've got no messages here. I'm going to send this, start forwarding messages, and then we've got 100 notifications automatically come through straight away, and forwarded 100 messages, forward 104 messages instantly like that. all communications that the threat actor had with this malware, which they've sent out to all the victims, have been compromised, and they're in the control of me. And I can read them, I can analyze them. So I can go through this, and straight away, look, you can see it's actually the same account I'm using here, but you can see, look, configuring C2 communication channel, bot setup successful, initiating malware configuration. I basically wrote these, I manually typed it out, but this is what it would look like with an info stealer. If you were to do this, you would see entries like this. A lot of them are VMs. You would see maybe crypto information, credit card information. You may see attachments. You may see text files or keylog attachments, and so on and so forth. And you can see hundreds of entries there, email addresses, PII, credentials, so on and so forth, addresses. And this is what the InfoStealer logs would look like. And if you were to do this in the wild, you have to be careful because you are dealing with victim data and you are seeing this. You have to be really, really cautious of the data you see and how you deal with it. But you will also see sometimes threat actor data. And I mentioned we're doing this to gather intelligence, right? Sometimes if you're a threat actor, right, and you're doing a mouse spam campaign, so you're going to send out malware to, let's say, 30,000 victims, and the malware is using Telegram for C2. You want to test it, right? Before sending it to all those victims, you want to make sure it works. You're going to run it in an environment, a test environment. And when you run it in the test environment, hopefully the malware is successful, is working, it is going to send messages to the Telegram chat. Well, the thing is, some threat actors don't always use a test environment, and they may do it on their production hacking machine. And when we see that, we see screenshots and keylogs from their own hacking machine, and we can gain valuable intelligence on that. I've actually seen this in the wild before, where a threat actor has tested their own malware on their own hacking machine before deploying the malware and sending it to thousands of victims. And as a result, I managed to harvest hundreds and hundreds of screenshots of their cybercrime operation. If you are interested in that, I've got a blog if you go on my blog, polygonben.github.io, you can find it there, or it may be mentioned in the course at some point. But yeah, we can start to sort of get an understanding of how the threat actor operates from these screenshots, and we can very easily sort of forward the communications. Right, what we're doing here isn't anything fancy. Polygon Ben, I'll quickly show it right now. Let's just get it up here. I'll do it in the VM. polygonben.github.io. I think if you go here, the blog here is compromising threat actor communications. And what I basically did is very similar to what I'm showing you on this workshop right now, where we prepare a bot. In this case, this is actually a threat actor's bot, and we managed to forward communications similar to what I just showed you there. And we can see, look, there is a keylogger, so on and so forth. And this is the threat actor's communications, not the simulated fake one. And so forth. We go down here and we start seeing screenshots. And funnily enough, they're screenshots of the threat actor's machine, not a victim machine. And we can see them buying domains. We can see them building infrastructure. We can see the email addresses they're using to log into Cloudflare. We can see the email addresses they're using, the IP addresses. We can even see we can see their root credentials for SSH. So this threat actor has to configure email servers, and it has to configure. It buys they buy domains and lots of domains, and they're buying sort of cloud instances to deploy their infrastructure. We can see the root credentials they use to deploy their infrastructure. We've got keylog files as they're entering passwords. We can see more and more credentials. We can build up a picture of how this cybercrime actor operates, right? What tools are they using? How are they hosting their attacks? And it's really, really interesting because, as I mentioned, I work in a SOC, so I deal with cyber attacks day in, day out, and I'm seeing it from the perspective of logs, right? The telemetry which is generated on the victim machines. We don't we very rarely see the cybercrime operations from the cyber hackers' own computer screens, from wherever they are, on wherever the world, on their own computer. We only see it in our logs, like in our network traffic logs, in our EDR telemetry. When we see the malware get executed, we don't see it on their side, how they're initiating it from their Kali machine, so on and so forth. This is the visibility we get, and this is the intelligence we get. So we could go and report this to Cloudflare. We could go and report it to whoever, and this is why we do it, right? We do it. It's not. It is fun to compromise threat actors' communications and see what's going on, but we do it with good intent, with the intent of exposing a threat actor, identifying loads of additional domains we can use to hunt for additional activity, and so on and so forth. But at the end of this, like, I've been able to build up a picture of this threat actor, how they operate, and this is just from one sample of malware I analyzed, using the simple technique of literally just forwarding the Telegram messages and just analyzing those communications. So, I'm just about wrapping up now. As I mentioned, this is just a small section of the workshop. There is lots of other labs, lots of other malware analysis to get into, other Telegram, other threat actors you're going to be digging down and investigating, real threat actors with real active malware. One thing I wanted to ensure that this workshop had was sort of real up-to-date malware, not stuff from years and years ago, right? We have included some classics, but for the most part, this is hot off the press malware from the, like, I first seen in the wild like a couple of weeks ago. And there is some really interesting malware you'll get to play around with. So yeah, I'm basically done the workshop now, but moving into questions, I guess. So yeah. Sorry. Does anyone have any questions for me? Feel free to put them in the chat if anyone has any questions. Or if you're doing the workshop, you're doing the challenges, and you want help in the Discord channel, Threat Actor Comms, I believe it is, or Stealing Threat Actor Comms, you can put your questions in there, and I'll be available. As everyone mentioned, this is the conference which doesn't end, so you'll be able to do these labs, these workshops in the months that follow. So in a month's time, if anyone has a question or they want to go over something, feel free to put it in there, and I'll happily help. Hello.
Ben, I have two questions, if that's okay.
Go for it.
I don't want to stomp on anyone that has, the attendees that are listening in. But you might have already covered this, so please forgive me if I'm on repeat. But when you join a bot or some other, like a Telegram bot, to be able to forward messages, I sometimes either tend to see, you have to delete a webhook of theirs first so that you can get the messages back. I mean, that's quote unquote like an indicator, right? Or like a telltale sign to that threat actor or that adversary, like, I'm a little hosed right now. There's really no way to kind of get around that, is there? You always end up leaving fingerprints whenever we try to pull this info back. Is that right?
That's a good point. Not all Telegram bots are configured to use webhooks. I've on VirusTotal, I initially was mass downloading. I was basically using Yara rules, and on VirusTotal, the Yara rules have the capability to look for malware it's communicating. So I was basically looking for all files which were communicated with api.telegram.org and downloading these at mass. And particularly, I was looking for modified async rat samples which used Telegram API for exfiltration. And I was harvesting the API tokens at mass. And I've got about 400 or 500 bot tokens of info stealers which use the Telegram API. And I was going through and enumerating these with the API, with the bot token. I was basically using the API functions get me and get updates to basically enumerate what capabilities these bots had. Not all of them had webhooks and had that capability. A lot of them just had the capability to send to one chat or one group or one channel. They didn't have all of that capability. I'm not sure what logging is available for the threat actors or how they can monitor if their bot has been compromised. But I'm not really that concerned if they are. Like, so what? I could
Yeah.
also use the bot token to start spamming their Telegram channel with messages that I can send to them. I don't care if they find out for the most part. I'm going and shouting about it anyway, so I'm happy to expose threat actors who are stupid and do stuff like this. So
Another one for you, if that's okay, and forgive me. Do you find or see or know of kind of a way to give yourself a little bit more capability with multiple Telegram accounts? Because I've always found, me trying to create a quote unquote sock puppet or second or multiple Telegram accounts, well, it'll verify and validate over a phone number. And if I try to use like Text Now or Google Voice or some like online digital, virtual phone number, they pick up on that pretty quick and they'll ban your account. So I'm like, oh shoot, I feel bad tying this all to like my actual phone number. Are there other ways or multiple SIM cards or?
I don't actually know. I don't know if you could potentially use like an eSIM on your phone. And I guess that's a bit risky. But I personally, I've got a few Telegram accounts which are mapped to like the same phone number I'm using on them. I've changed my Telegram settings to make my phone number anonymous and basically lock down the account and make it super private. But I also have that concern because on one of these Telegram accounts, which I think it's named, it is a sock puppet Telegram account, but it's mapped to a real number I own. And I have created a bot token which is mapped to malware. And if this eventually gets out on the internet, I hope the Telegram account doesn't get taken down, but it could do. So we'll see.
Yeah, that is the balancing act, maybe a delicate juggling of the polite Telegram terms of service, but hey, doing for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. But awesome.
Super cool. Thank you. I'm glad this got some love. That is just so cool to see it in action. So.
Yeah, thank you. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope people enjoy the workshop. So yeah, thank you.
I like how you said this was a small piece of the workshop too, Ben, over there. Just to highlight again how much density there is inside of this to kind of keep going. Really cool.
Yeah, I don't think 8 hours would be enough to get through it all.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I think there was a couple questions over there. Let me kind of scroll back up as well. Saw one from Cyberkata over there from old Doug.
How did you obfuscate without them being aware? Also, you can see this, but cannot take action because a smart actor will lag. So how did you obfuscate? So the obfuscation is the act of making malware maybe unreadable or scripts unreadable, and it's used to evade defenses. So a threat actor or a cyber criminal will obfuscate their malware. I deobfuscated it, and when the malware is on my machine and it's in a sandbox, the threat actor isn't going to be aware of them deobfuscating it. So they're not going to be aware of me in a VM playing around in maybe a notepad or in CyberChef. They're not going to be aware of me unraveling it and doing that. What they may be aware of is me interacting on Telegram, me using the API keys and forwarding the messages. I think with this particular configuration, they're not going to be aware. I don't think there is much logging, or if by default there isn't any logging. And I'm certainly not aware, as I was the person who created this Telegram bot and then embedded the tokens in the malware. I don't know when it's being used. I don't know who's forwarding it or when. So I think it's hard for a threat actor to detect. John mentioned earlier, if there is some webhooks or if there is other capabilities, like you can embed webhooks into your malware. And when you use these any run scripts, you have an option to delete the webhook and destroy that functionality. And I would encourage you to do so if you did this in the wild, because you can sort of break some of the malware's functionality. And that would obviously, the threat actor would be aware of them. And the second part of the question, also you can see this, but you cannot take the action right because a smart actor will lag or see the action. I guess they could close the channel and delete it, but by the time they've if they were made aware of it, you've already stolen all the communications at that point, right? So they're not going to find out their communications or their Telegram chat has been compromised until it's too late for them, which is fantastic for us. So I hope that answered the question. I wasn't entirely sure if I understood that correctly, but
yeah, cool. Let's see. There was one kind of a little bit close to that too. Were you only using the prepare bot to get the group ID?
So yeah, you could do this in curl with the get updates Telegram API, and you could just add the bot to a group and then call that API, and then the get updates will basically say, look, this is the update for the bot. It's now been added to this group, and this will give us the chat ID of the group. I mentioned earlier, and there may be some misunderstanding in the chat. The chat ID I got was negative. If you add the bot to a group, it's negative, and I'm pretty sure if you add the bot to a DM directly, it's a positive chat ID. I'm pretty sure on that, but do not quote me. But the prepare bot script by any run just helps us get that group ID. You don't have to use that. If you wanted to, you could, as I mentioned, use the Telegram API directly with curl or whatever in the command line.
Cool. There's also a question to because this was actually all about Telegram. Might be kind of be good to hearing your take on this, Ben. Why not WhatsApp or maybe your Signal, maybe one of the other types of services as well too? Why Telegram? Why was there such a focus on this?
So yeah, that's a really good point. I think Telegram is really easy to get set up. First of all, it's free, and it comes with some privacy benefits. So a lot of people use Telegram because the end-to-end encryption, and I think compared to other social media or messaging platforms, Telegram is typically used by cyber criminals, threat actors quite often because maybe they are less engaged with law enforcement and less likely to communicate and pass information over to law enforcement. So similar reasons to why you would see threat actors or just other criminals using Telegram as a way to communicate. One, because it's encrypted. And good point. Yeah, why not WhatsApp? Why not Signal? We do see other platforms. I don't know why we don't see them as frequently. But yeah.
Cool. I think those are all the ones that I was kind of tracking up there in the chat over there. But if anyone else has any other questions, go ahead and drop them now. Real quick, maybe we can still get Ben to answer one of them. Otherwise, might be looking at a move to Discord. I don't see anything pop up. Maybe just give 15-ish seconds over there. Anything else you want to ask Ben inside a chat about him, the workshop? Or sorry, do something? Yeah.
I see one question there. How to learn this sort of obfuscation for develop my own project? My most concern is evasion during red team tool development. So obfuscation is basic. It's just encryption or encoding. What we're dealing with is data which is in some format or another. Maybe it's a string which has been reversed and then basic stuff are encoded, right? How do you learn this? You go out. I think the best way to learn anything, or a lot of things in cybersecurity, is just go out there and do it, right? Whether it's a CTF or a lab environment, doing my course, right? We're going to teach you how to deal with obfuscation. This is what the workshop's here for. Or if you don't want to do the workshop and you want to learn in your own time, right, just go out on Malware Bazaar or go to a website where you can download malware and just download it and play around with it. And if you get stuck, maybe paste the script into ChatGPT or some other AI tool and get it to explain it to you, right? There's no shame of using AI just to understand how a script works. I certainly do it just to help me in my spare time all the time. So yeah, just go out there and play around in the wild or do my workshop. That's probably the answer to that.
Right. Go do his workshop and then go get your hands dirty. Awesome. Ben, thank you, man. That was awesome. Really cool to see it in action too. Put a lot of work into that.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. So yeah, awesome.
Cool. Well, if anyone wants to get a hold of Ben, hop inside of Discord. He's going to be available inside there as well too. Answer further questions, and like you heard from him, go do his workshop. Go get your hands dirty and get playing around with some of that malware. In the meantime, Ben, I guess have a good rest of your Saturday over here. And thanks again.
Thank you. Take it easy. Have a good one.
Thank you.